What's up, everyone? My name is Alan, founder and consultant at For Now Marketing, and welcome to Braze for Technical Marketers. Today, let's go over how to create an alias profile using the Users Track API endpoint. Let's get started. So before we get started, this is the API documentation page for Users Track endpoint, and this will be the endpoint that we'll be using to create the user alias profile. And this is the endpoint that we use the most frequently. So this is pretty much the main endpoint that you can use to log data, custom attributes, custom events, or purchase events. And then we are going to be using the attributes object. So there's three types of data objects in Braze: attributes, event, and purchases. And attributes is what allows us to create user aliases as well. So you can see that user alias is one of the options. And there's actually another endpoint that you could use to create alias profiles as well. And this one might actually sound like the more appropriate choice because it's called create new user alias. We just simply find it easier to use the users track endpoint because one, it gets the job done the same exact way, and two, you can actually log custom attributes along with the same call. So if you wanted to do more than just the alias, but maybe log like a first name, last name, email address, you can do all of that in the user's track endpoint, which is this one, versus the create new user alias. I don't believe you are able to log more than just the alias. So we just find the user's track endpoint much more helpful. And then three, just consolidating all our calls to a single endpoint. This endpoint does have the highest rate limit as well. So overall, we like user track endpoint. So here's what that looks like in Braze. First, we're gonna go to settings and APIs. We are gonna need to create an API key that allows us to use the user's track endpoint. So I'm gonna go to API keys. I'm gonna create and secure these keys and only share them with trusted partners. API keys should never be publicly exposed. I'm glad Braze made the identifier at least somewhat partially covered, so I feel okay launching this video. And this one is actually our real API key. So I will not be showing us that full code, but for the one that we're creating together, which I will call create alias YouTube, like FNM YouTube. And we will be deleting this API key as soon as the video is finished. But the API key for users track can be found under user data. So if you click on the drop down, generally, it's best practice to only enable the API key for the endpoint that you need, which in our case will be users track. That's what we're going to be using. You could maybe check it out for users alias if you do want to try out using the other endpoint as well. Or if you if you want to be a little bit more flexible, you could check off the entire user data category, as all of these other endpoints are also pretty helpful and maybe frequently used. For our video today, I will simply check off user's track because that's all I will need. Create API key, and then that got created. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And then next, we're going to go to templates and webhook templates. And we like to use webhooks to trigger these API calls. The other option is you could also actually do the same thing in a Canvas user update step. And the Canvas user update step is actually even more useful because it doesn't require us to create an API key. There's a nice like UI aspect to it. So we could just go in here and then go to advanced JSON editor, and whatever we're about to do in the webhook page, you can do the exact same thing here as well. Um, it has its pros and cons. Once again, it's a lot less complicated. The UI is nice. You don't need key value pairs. We just find it a little bit faster to go the webhook route, and we're used to it. And it's also going to live with, along with all the other webhooks that we use in our day to day. So there's just a few small pros and cons, but this is a completely viable option as well. And we also like to keep our technical skills in check. So let's go ahead and create a webhook template. This one, we're going to call it, what do we call our other ones? Create profile. So we're going to call it create alias profile. And then that API key that we copied earlier. So that's going to be one of the request headers. And I'm going to just paste it here for now so we don't lose it. But if you go back to the user's track endpoint documentation, every documentation page has this type of structure: request body. It says content type, application JSON, authorization bearer. So we're going to actually follow that structure. These are going to be our request headers. So that can go, I'll exit out of this Canvas page. That can go right here. So it said authorization, and then we need to write the word bearer and then API key. And then we need application or content type. It was content dash type and then application slash JSON. Let's just check. And then actually, I did a bad thing. I hard typed those fields, but best practice is just to copy and paste, and that just makes sure we avoid any typos. To be honest, we've typed this in hundreds of times building this webhook, so we are a little bit more used to it, but it's always, always, always best practice to copy and paste. But also on the other thing to note is that these we've actually tried building with lowercase c, lowercase t. They all seem to work fine, but that's also an exception. In most cases, many things are case sensitive, so just sharing our experience here. Okay, so the next thing to note is we're going to need the webhook URL. So the webhook URL can be found. This is pretty much the API URL, but we're also going to want to go to our API homepage, and you want to find, let's see, maybe that's under API overview. So the page I'm looking for is this point. So you're going to want to find your dashboard server and then find the REST endpoint, which for us, we are in dashboard O2 EU. So we're going to find this, and we're going to find the REST endpoint. That's going to be the root of our URL, followed by the API endpoint, which is going to be this one. So copy and paste that. We don't want 2 slashes. And then last thing is we want to change that to raw text, and then we're going to type in our request body. So for user alias, what we're going to do is, let's see what the best way to go about this is. So we're going to go ahead and open up. Okay, I was trying to look for a good example I can copy and paste from one of these things, and I think this might be a good example. Although let me see if there's one for user alias. So there is user alias here. And actually, we just found the perfect example. So there is actually a small note that the documentation includes about creating alias profiles for the very first time. So creating net new alias profiles does require this key called update existing only key within the body. So there's an example which is going to be exactly what we need. So we're going to copy and paste this entire payload right here, starting from the first curly. I'm actually not sure if there should be 2 curly, so I'm just going to copy the first curly all the way to the end of that curly, and then let's paste it in there. And this actually should follow the exact structure that we are looking for. So the user alias is an object itself, and for an alias, there's always a name and a label. There's always 2 parts. Think of it this way: you have a unique name. Everyone has a unique name. My name is Alan, but everyone has a general label. The name, my name Alan, has a label of name, or my the marketing platform that we use. The name is called Braze, but the label is marketing platform. So let's go ahead and try creating an alias for the label. The label is going to have FNM user, let's just say, and the name is going to be Alan. And then let's give it our email, alan.at4nowmarketing.com. And actually, just for out of curiosity, let's see what happens if we get rid of this update existing only. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and save the template. And actually, if you noticed, there is an extra dangling comma. We don't want that unless you are hoping to create multiple alias profiles at once, but we just want to have a single attribute object in this case. And then if you go to test and then click send test, this should create a one-time test, and it's going to run the API call that way. Then let's see if this email address got created. So we're going to search users. And we may actually already have a profile under this email address, but do we have an alias profile with it? And it looks like maybe we have not created an alias profile. Okay, it looks like I also have a lot of profiles with that email address, so maybe I'll try to change it up. And here's the other thing. You can also search by aliases specifically by following this format. So it's going to be FNM user, FNM dash user. So that's the alias label, colon, alias name. And this is how you search for aliases in the Braze dashboard. But it looks like this user profile is still not created, and that's because we removed the tag. So we're going to go back now, and we are going to add the update existing only. I think that was actually right here. And as long as we follow our format, it shouldn't matter too much, but I will indent it so that it follows. And so we're saying this is not an existing profile. We're marking it false. So therefore, Braze will actually go ahead and create this new one. And then we're going to actually just call it alias so that it's obvious. So we created that. Let's give it a minute. Hopefully this time when we search or maybe when we refresh, we see a user profile, alias user profile with the email address that we added. And if you click user aliases, you can see the exact label and name that we've added as well. And then lastly, Braze started doing this awesome thing where the Braze ID is easily discoverable on the profile as well. Every profile has a behind the scenes Braze ID, which is different than your alias, which our alias is FNM user Alan. That's it for today. Thank you for watching and see you next time.